billionaire energy investor by the name of Boone Pickens. And Boone Pickens used to be an oil man, but now he has shifted his focus to renewable energy. That's what his entire business is centered on. And he basically says that the biggest deterrent to an energy plan here in America are the Koch brothers, which I think most environmentalists and most Democrats would agree with.
Oh, indeed. It was a pretty stunning slam against the Kochs. I mean, I was thinking of it as a billionaire codger cage match, because here you've got, on the one hand, you've got the Koch brothers, these second richest men in America, I believe, who are deeply invested in their oil and chemical businesses. They own most of the pipeline, refineries, all of that. They have their little hands in all of that. And then you've got Boone Pickens on the other side, who, as you said, used to be an oil man, but now has taken most of his money and really bet heavily on wind and natural gas vehicles like trucks. He's the one that put forth the idea that we could transition America's truck delivery fleet into natural gas, which would save a lot of money and also make a lot of money for Boone Pickens.
Now, he was speaking to Yahoo News, and I think that he had a perfect statement when it came to the Koch brothers. He says the biggest deterrent to an energy plan in America is Koch Industries. They do not want an energy plan for America because they have the cheapest natural gas price they've ever had. And they're in the fertilizer business, and they're in the chemical business. So their margins are huge, and they do not want you to have an energy plan, because if you had a plan, the natural gas prices would come up.
Right, and he's absolutely right about that. For him to have the idea that we have this incredible boom right now in the very controversial drilling technique of hydraulic fracturing, or fracking for short, that's something that has been in the news lately as more and more homeowners are realizing that there's scientific evidence that natural gas drilling in the form of fracking can actually contaminate their water. So that's an issue, but it has created this huge boom. This huge boom has now created a natural gas glut throughout the United States and caused the price to drop, I think it's like 90% over the last 10 years or so. And that's been great for companies that use natural gas as their supply, because that means their supply chain is cheaper, but not so great for folks like Boone Pickens, who makes his money off of that.
Now let's talk about natural gas a little bit, because I feel like scientists right now are debating, or at least trying to figure out whether or not drilling for natural gas is more environmentally friendly than mining for coal.
Well, we have a life cycle issue that we're talking about here.
Right.
That overall in the past, studies appear to make it look like, when you do a life cycle analysis from the actual extraction through the distribution, through the actual use of and the burning of and the emissions of these two different types of fossil fuels, coal and natural gas. Now, overall, the evidence appears to make it look like natural gas has about half the life cycle emissions of coal. And that's really good. At this point, we cannot stop using coal and natural gas immediately. We can't do a cold stop, but we do need to dial back our emissions gradually if we're going to stay within what the climate scientists say is 2 degrees Celsius of average global temperatures rising. That will keep us sort of within a sort of a safe limit. If we go beyond that, then we get into some potentially dangerous consequences. So in order to get to that, in order to basically ramp down our emissions without actually causing huge economic disruption, that's the switch over to natural gas. And unfortunately, as they do more studies on this and they do more investigations, they're finding that natural gas may not actually be the great bridge that we're hoping for.
Right, and a lot of that has to do with methane leaks. So
yes, in the drilling process. Now, hydraulic fracturing, for those who don't know, it's the injection into a well, drilling well, of millions of gallons of water, fresh water, which is an issue in the West. Millions of gallons of fresh water laced with toxic chemicals like benzene that get injected deep into the ground under high pressure. And what this does is it fractures the rock, and that causes the gas that's embedded, the natural gas that's embedded in these rocks, to be released, and it goes back up the pipe. The problem is that you get methane leakage at every single stage of the drilling process. Methane is a greenhouse gas that's 30 times more powerful at trapping the sun's heat than carbon dioxide is.
Wow.
So when you have even just a little bit of methane that's escaping during these processes, then you actually can have a problem later on with increasing your emissions such that it actually kind of equals out over coal. And that's the issue that we're looking at right now. There's a new study that just came out that took what the EPA had estimated at being, a 2.4% leakage of methane from the drilling process, and they said, you know what, it actually may be double that. They actually measured the air quality in Colorado around fracking sites. And this can be a major issue. If we're trying to dial back, if we ever do get any kind of national standard in order to start beginning a serious reduction of our emissions, by going toward more sustainable, more renewable technologies, the great white hope of natural gas being the bridge may not actually prove to be true. And that becomes a very serious issue when we're trying to actually meet these targets.
Right. When it comes to renewable energy and when it comes to wind power and solar power, do you see that as something, T. Boone Pickens obviously sees that as something that could be successful and profitable in the future. What are your thoughts on that? You have the Republican Party right now criticizing the Obama administration for what happened with Solyndra.
Right.
And they will not let that go. And they're doing whatever they can to basically keep renewable energy, wind power, solar power, all of that under the table, brush it under the rug. Let's not allow it to be successful. Do you see this as becoming a breakthrough in the future?
Yes. I don't see how there can be anything other than that. When you have, as we talked about earlier, the military making a huge investment in renewable technologies just for their own necessary needs. And then also, it's the fastest growing sector in the United States of jobs, clean energy jobs, fastest growing sector. It's a huge sector of the economy as well. In fact, it weathered the recession a lot better than other industries did. Now, of course, it is still in a situation, renewable energies are, where they need that government subsidies, the taxpayer funding to help get from that research past that valley of death of investment to actual deployment and success. But what people don't really seem to realize is that the oil industry gets subsidized and the coal industry gets subsidized by the taxpayer at something like 4 times the amount of renewables. These oil industry subsidies are permanent. They were established, some as far back as 1916, whereas now we have to get the wind energy and the solar energy and the geothermal energy subsidies and credits and other industry support, economic support. That has to be reestablished by Congress every single year, and it becomes quite a bargaining chip. With the combination of these things, you can actually replace all of our fossil fuel use with a dedicated effort, but the problem is you actually have to try.